a man stands before the Ottoman Sultan. Scattered across 3 continents are thousands of people who believe he's the Messiah. The guards give him one choice, the turban or the sword. He takes the turban. He converts to Islam on the spot, right there. The thing his own followers had sworn would never happen. Not to him, not to the Messiah. This is Sabbatai Zevi in the year 1666. Half of the world Jewry spread across Europe and the Middle East believed this man was about to bring the redemption. And then he didn't. He became a Muslim court official instead. Here's the question: why didn't this end the movement? It's about what happens inside a person who has already handed their belief to somebody else and then watches that person fail in the most public way possible. It all started in Smyrna in 1665. Sabbatai Zevi is a merchant's son trained in the Talmud since boyhood and known about town for these unusual swings between total withdrawal and bursts of ecstatic, almost manic energy. People called him strange. Then a Kabbalist named Nathan of Gaza meets him. Nathan doesn't just admire Zevi, he declares him the Messiah, and he sends that announcement out across the entire Jewish world. Letter after letter, community after community. Now, why would that land? Why would people believe it? Because the ground had already been prepared for it. Between 1648 and 1649, the Khmelnytsky massacres killed tens of thousands of Jews in Ukraine, and on top of that grief set a mystical framework, Lurianic Kabbalah, that had already taught people to expect redemption to arrive. So when Nathan's letters arrived, they weren't landing on skeptical ground. They were landing on a ground that had been plowed for exactly this seed. And people didn't just nod along, they acted. Whole communities sold their property. They fasted for days. They packed their belongings and began preparing to travel to Jerusalem because they believed the redemption wasn't in some distant future. It was days away. Then, just as fast as all of this had risen, it came apart. In February of 1666, the Ottomans arrested Zevi. He's held first in Gallipoli, then moved to Adrianople, and there, in front of the Sultan's court, he's given the ultimatum: convert or die. He puts on the turban. He takes a new name, Aziz Metin Effendi, and becomes an official at the Sultan's court, a Muslim official on Muslim salary, drawing a Muslim pension. Here's the baffling part. The movement doesn't fall apart. Because when failure comes, the human mind doesn't usually reach for surrender. It reaches for reinterpretation. And that's exactly the tool Zevi's followers picked up. The conversion, they decided, wasn't a betrayal of the mission. It was a necessary mystical descent. The Messiah had to sink into impurity, into the unclean world, in order to redeem it from the inside. The failure had been the plan all along. The defeat was this strategy nobody had foreseen, but everybody could believe it was meant to be. And that belief didn't fade out quietly. The movement split into 2 branches, one quieter and more moderate, one radical, and it kept moving through Jewish communities for more than 100 years after Zevi's death. Even today, there is a community in Turkey called the Dönme, tens of thousands of people who trace their lineage back through this exact history. A converted, hidden branch of belief that outlived the man who started it by centuries. So don't file this away as some fringe overreaction. A handful of true believers who couldn't let go. This was the dominant response. This is what most of Zevi's followers did when their Messiah put on the turban. Which means the real question isn't about Zevi at all anymore. It's about what's happening inside a mind that watches its object of faith fail, completely and publicly, and responds not by questioning the faith, but by rewriting the failure until it fits. Before we dive in, if this kind of content resonates with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you. You'll find the link in the top comment below. Now let's get back into it. Jump forward almost 300 years. In 1954, a suburb outside Chicago. Different century, different continent. A woman named Dorothy Martin says she's receiving messages through automatic writing, her hand moving on its own, channeling communication from a planet called Clarion. The message is very specific. The world floods on December 21, 1954. Whole continents go under, and the only people who get pulled out in time are the faithful. The small group gathered around Martin, who will be lifted off the earth by spacemen before the water comes. Now, a psychologist named Leon Festinger hears about this group before the date arrives, and he does something most researchers wouldn't. He doesn't stand outside the group and study it from a distance. He sends observers in to join it, posing as believers, sitting in the meetings, nodding along, watching things unfold from the inside. On December 20th, into the night of the 21st, the group gathers in Martin's living room. They wait for the ships. Midnight comes and goes. Nothing happens. The group sits there in the actual physical presence of the failure, no ambiguity, no room to wonder if maybe they got the date wrong. And here is what happens next, and it happens fast. It's not collapse. It's not people standing up and walking out. At around 4:45 that morning, Martin receives a new message. The world was saved, she says, because of them. Their small group's faith, their devotion through the night, had been enough to call off the flood entirely. Festinger has a name for what he just watched. Cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of holding a belief and the plain evidence against it in your head at the same time. And the mind doesn't usually resolve that discomfort by dropping the belief. It resolves it by changing the story around the belief just enough that the belief gets to survive. Which should sound familiar. It's the same shape we just watched play out with Zevi, 300 years apart. One built on Kabbalah and the machinery of an empire, the other unfolding in a suburban living room with a handful of people and a rumor about spacemen. Different century, different god, same basic move. Here's the part that matters. The failure itself isn't what breaks a belief. What breaks it is everything a person already gave up for it. These people had already spent everything before the flood was even supposed to arrive. The public declaration. In Zevi's case, the sold property, the fasting, the packed bags, months spent betting everything on being right. Letting go of the belief at that point doesn't just cost you the belief itself, it costs you everything you built on top of it. Every decision that only made sense if it were true. So the real question isn't why belief survives failure. It's this: What does it actually take to walk away once you've already given up everything to get there? But what if we didn't have to wait for a belief to fail and then scramble to reinterpret it? What if we could build a system so the failure never gets a chance to happen at all? There's a tradition that comes close to doing exactly that, and it's still running today. The title Dalai Lama first gets given out in 1578 to a monk named Sonam Gyatso. And for a while it's just a religious title, nothing more. But by 1642, under the 5th Dalai Lama, the office becomes something bigger. It's not just spiritual leadership anymore, it's a political rule over Tibet itself. Both crowns resting on the same head. Here's how it actually works, in detail, because it's genuinely unlike anything we just saw with Zevi or in Martin's living room. When a Dalai Lama dies, the search begins immediately. Senior lamas reading omens, watching for signs, consulting the Nihang oracle, a monk believed to channel a protector spirit while in trance, for guidance on where to look. And when they find a candidate, a child, they test him. They lay out objects, some that belonged to the previous Dalai Lama, some that didn't, and watch to see if the child reaches for the right ones, as if some part of him already knows. And notice what the structure actually does. Every new Dalai Lama arrives with no memory of what came before. The office just renews, generation after generation, and they never disappoint their followers. That's the whole design. Whether anyone set out to design it this deliberately or not, the belief never has to survive contact with its own failure, because the person who holds the role is swept out before that could happen. So if we line this up against what we already seen, Zevi's followers took a failure and rewrote the story after the fact, stitching a new meaning onto something that had already happened. Martin's group did the same thing overnight, in a matter of hours. But the Dalai Lama tradition doesn't need any rewriting at all, because there's no old story sitting around waiting to be tested against a broken promise. The story just restarts, clean in a new child, before the last one's claims can ever be checked against reality. And there is something else that connects all three of these. In every single case so far, the belief survived, or it avoided collapse entirely, because the person at the center of it was still there, still available to hold the whole structure together. Zevi's followers reinterpreted around him while he was still alive to be reinterpreted around. Martin's group reinterpreted around her, sitting right there in the room. And the Dalai Lama lineage sidesteps the whole problem by resetting the authority before it's even put to a real test. Which brings us to something else. What happens when the person handed the role looks at it, understands exactly what it is, and simply refuses to play it? Now to India, a few decades earlier. A boy named Jiddu Krishnamurti gets discovered on a beach near Madras in 1909 by a man named C.W. Leadbeater, a senior figure in something called the Theosophical Society. Leadbeater looks at this scrawny, sickly kid and sees something nobody else sees. Any peasant who runs the society agrees. She takes legal guardianship of the boy after a bitter fight with his own father, and from that point on, his life belongs to somebody else's plan. Here's what they believe, stated plainly. Krishnamurti is declared the vehicle for something called the World Teacher, the same office history assigns to Krishna, to the Buddha, to Christ. They built an organization around the belief, the Order of the Star in the East, with thousands of members across multiple continents, all waiting for this boy to grow into what they already decided he is. And that is what his whole childhood becomes. Tutors, religious instruction, elocution lessons, because a world teacher needs to speak well. Years of grooming, shaping a boy from the age of 14 to carry a title on this scale. Then in 1929 it breaks. Krishnamurti stands in front of thousands of his own followers at a camp in the Netherlands and dissolves the order himself, the thing built entirely around him. He says truth is a pathless land, and that no organization, no religion, no institution can walk a person down the path for them. He wants no disciples, no followers at all, because the moment someone starts following, he says, they've stopped looking for themselves. Besant is standing right there when this happens, watching the mission of her life come apart in real time. And her response isn't anger, it's not even disappointment. She stays loyal to him anyway, even as the very structure she built around him collapses in front of her. Krishnamurti spent the rest of his life traveling and speaking, decades of talks, widely read, still drawing people who showed up looking for a teacher, the exact thing he told them not to look for. And near the end of his life, by his own account, he said nobody understood what he actually passed through him. Not his closest students, not the people who'd followed him for 50 years, nobody. So here's what we got, laid out side by side. Believe that survives a public failure be writing it. Believe that rewrites failure overnight before the sun even comes up. Believe that gets rebuilt every generation so it never has to face failure at all. And one man handed the same role who looked at it and refused to fill it. None of this was really about the man at the center. Not Zevi, not the Dalai Lama, not Krishnamurti. It was always about what people did with their own conviction before any of them even showed up. Somewhere along the way, the seeker quietly turned into a consumer, waiting for someone else to reach the summit and send back a glimpse, like a postcard from heaven. These followers had it in them the whole time, the capacity to see for themselves, no Messiah required. But they didn't know that. After all, it's easier to let others offer truth instead of finding our own. Second-hand knowledge, borrowed from another person's seeing, is never direct, so we can never know if it's really true. If this resonated with you, come find me at luminaryflow.com. There's a free gift waiting for you there, and you'll also receive my newsletter with thoughts and inspiration behind each video. You'll find the link in the top comment below.